Hello and welcome, folks, to the first episode of Valoranting. What a perfect name for a Do Not Peek show. Valoranting. Goddamn perfect. I'm SirScoots. Right? I already dropped the F-bomb, didn't I? God, so fucking good. All right. So I'm SirScoots. Obviously, most of you know me. I am joined by a whole bunch of badasses from the FPS world, from esports, competitors themselves. I always get in trouble by my crew because I have these 20-minute intros of everybody. So I'm going to do it really quick. Got Pansy, Premier Caster, ex-Call of Duty 4 Pro, enemy territory before you could be a pro in something called enemy territory. Been around the block, PUBG lately, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, you name it. She's talked about it. She's played it. She's actually done, most recently, some Valorant casting with Golden Boy. So we're really excited to get her opinion on stuff. Right around the corner from her, and HenryG, who's already joined us a couple times on the Do Not Peek shows. HenryG, obviously ex-Counter-Strike professional, Source, Birmingham Salvo, London Mint. I don't remember. One of the two. God, that probably just really upset you, didn't it? I can't hear Henry. You're muted, Henry.
He's so upset.
I said it was London Mint. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I was so enraged with that whole situation. I wasn't a world champion, that's for sure. I was in London Mint. The Birmingham guys won. That's right. So
that's right. London Mint. And obviously Henry coming off. Yeah, Henry coming off a long stint at EPL. Still at EPL in Cologne. Stuck in Cologne. Cannot go home. We're about to start back up next this week for more Counter-Strike stuff. Played the game in the closed beta. Played it some more, so we want to get his opinion on stuff. And then at the very bottom, Matt, also, you might know him from Overwatch, but Matt comes from a whole pedigree of stuff before Overwatch. I met Matt when he was managing Call of Duty teams for Evil Geniuses, but he's actually been a player himself, done a variety of game casting, just currently right now working the Overwatch League. Also remoting. Everyone's remoting. We're all remoting. Yeah. I'm remoting. I wish we were doing this from our fancy studio, guys. We're not. It is what it is. But that's my crew today. We're going to talk about all things Valoranting. We're going to try to get some questions at the end of the show. It depends on how long we run. So if you do have a question for any of these guys throughout the show, in chat, use Do Not Peek or DN Peek to highlight it, and one of our crew will grab that and get it to me towards the end of the show. All right. There's our intro. Still took just as long. Sorry, Jason. Pansy, let's start with you. What have you been up to these days? How are you feeling? What's life been like for Lauren?
You know, it was start of the year, everything's looking promising. Obviously, the whole COVID thing kind of locked everything out, but it's been slowly transitioning to mostly online work. I think everyone's in a similar boat, whether it be remote studios, working from home. It's kind of working towards that. A lot of streaming, a lot of Valorant, honestly. I didn't expect to be playing as much as I am, but tend to put a lot of hours towards it. But yeah, a little bit of PUBG, a little bit of Valorant, a little bit of this and that. Basically just filling time until all of this hopefully blows over. But yeah, that's been about it recently. It's mostly sitting in this chair is essentially what's been going on.
Yeah, we're all feeling that. HenryG, I said a little bit about what you've been up to. You've been locked in Cologne for quite a while, my friend.
Yeah, if you're receiving this message, help me. This is getting a little bit out of control at this point. I'm living with 5 other CSGO broadcasters. Yeah, I can a little bit. Kind of staying indoors all day says it hurts, apparently. Yeah, no, to be fair, it's actually super sunny in Cologne. We've gone on like walks in Germany. You're allowed to be out in pairs of 2. So Alex and I go out and we go walks around cemeteries and kind of just explore the local areas, really. Kind of see what's around. And yeah,
it's happy, joyous, friendly places like cemeteries, the morgue we stop by once in a while.
Yeah, you can't just drop in.
It's been lovely.
Take walks around cemeteries.
Yeah. I mean, thankfully, Germany does seem to be doing a bang-up job in the overall sense of kind of control the virus, at least. So you got that going for
absolutely.
me. Our country, maybe not so much.
Honestly, yeah,
not so much about
my normal cemetery walks. I've for now.
That's unfortunate. I know you're fond of them.
Yeah. So Matt, you've been remoting as well for the Overwatch League, trying to get through this season. Obviously, you're at home right now. Walk us through what you've been up to.
Overwatch League, tons of just other shows and content around Overwatch on some of like the podcasts I do. A bunch of other stuff, but mostly, like, honestly, it's really just been playing a ton of games, just waiting for the time to go by. I play Valorant, then I get on World of Warcraft, then I get back on Valorant, then I play Overwatch, then I go back to World of Warcraft, then I go back to Valorant, and the next thing I know, it's like 3 a.m. I'm like, oh, well, time to go to bed and do it all again. Like, and then it's you wake up and you throw the same sweatpants on like 2 days in a row, 3 days in a row. You're just kind of like, huh? Yeah,
you hanging out with your wife at all? Or no?
Oh yeah, she's gaming too. She's playing as much Valorant as I do. Well, once I tilt off of Valorant, she continues to play, and I play World of Warcraft. That's kind of how it goes.
That's fair play. Nice. Respect.
That's perfect. Well, yeah. So. Yeah, we're all making do. It's unfortunate, and of course, we don't obviously know how long we're all going to be stuck in our remote world. I think one of the overall bonuses for gaming and esports is this is how we all started. Like, take us back 10, 15 years ago, and this is a normal show. This is a normal event. Casters are casting from home. Players are playing from home. We're observing remotely. So at least we had something to fall back on. You see traditional sports literally scrambling. 1 minute they hated the simulation version of their racing games, and now they're using them on broadcast television to simulate F1, simulate NASCAR. So in a weird silver lining way, it's like, yeah, we told you this shit was pretty entertaining, didn't we? It is, right? So thankfully, at least our industry, other than the live component, is not getting crushed like so many other industries in the world are, restaurants, etc. So a little bit of silver lining there. Let's get into a lot of esports talk today, right? So let's talk right into it. We've already had events. We've already had tournaments. Maybe too soon. We always talk about, like, why are you throwing tournaments already? The game just came out, right? But everyone is making YouTube videos. Everyone's talking about, Sova's top 5 fucking arrows. Number 4 is going to surprise the fuck out of you, by the way. But lots of content. And so on the esports side, that means lots of tournaments, lots of events. Again, all remote. And I think it's cool. Like, this is built to be a competitive game. So it's not like they're trying to shoehorn some single-player game and do some sort of competitive format. They built this baby to play as we're now doing with tournaments. So kind of neat to see. Lauren, you've casted some already. We've seen our Counter-Strike ex-pros, especially Hiko's team. Yep. Other than the dev team, they have literally dominated everybody. Now, keep in mind, the dev team also has some ex-Counter-Strike pros on it, so that kind of helps. But initial thoughts on what you've watched so far on the or casted, if you will, on the tournament side of this thing. Start with you, Pansy.
Honestly, yeah, like, for me, as much as, yes, like, Brax, I guess, being picked up by T1, and he's, like, with his team with Hiko, Scar, all of this, like, that little kind of jumble of players. Yeah, they're leading the way right now. But there are actually a couple of, I guess, different mixes pretty close by. They're certainly not untouchable right now. I don't think anyone's surprised that the devs smashed through the initial games. I'm just going to put that to one side. If you actually know who any of them are, you're going to know that they're perfectly diligent in any FPS game. So there's no need to even be surprised about that. But outside of them, the Apex players coming up, and I guess they are also arguably tier 2, 3 CS players at some point as well. A lot of them transferred through to that, have actually done brilliantly. I think it's Dizzy. With some of his team, did actually incredibly well. They took maps off Brax's side. It certainly put them through their paces. I think initially you're seeing the CS players obviously taking the lead just predominantly because they know the fundamentals. You know how to run these rounds. You know how to do set executes. It's very, very easy to fit into that role. Eventually, though, I think we're going to start seeing a little bit more of a jumble of players finding a way to kind of counteract that, because it's not Counter-Strike. I think anyone who's played it so far who is a CS player, you'll eventually hit, a team, a player, a couple of players who just outdo you. They can use all the wizards and spells shit, and then you're sat there going, well, how many times can we contact B and just be like,
official terminology?
Smokes, right?
Yeah,
I've heard it from Sponge. Yeah, Sponge with his wizards, pixie spell bullshit. Yeah. No, I mean,
it's true.
It's going to take... It's a thing. No, I think, again, like, for now, yeah, it's going to be the boys who've got the aim and the fundamentals to be able to pull off executes, but the catch-up's there. It's already happening. I think it's going to be a very even playing field once we get, like, that little bit of a grinding time out of the way.
That makes sense.
Yeah, we've actually played in a Valorant tournament, I think, haven't we? So we
yes,
you guys played in one. Yeah.
We lost to the Wizard and Pixies. Yeah. Jesus fucking Christ.
Perfect encapsulation, I suppose, of us being CS players. Like anyone who wasn't like a natural kind of FPS player, we kind of smashed them.
Yep.
And as soon as we played against a team that obviously played Valorant a lot, they weren't CS players or even FPS players, but they really understood the mechanics of each individual agent, and that really dominated us. Bear in mind, this was like what, day 2 of the beta, or even day 1.
Yeah, it was early.
It was not like we
super
really
early before we
even as CS players, we could like we won out 3 out of 4 games, but as soon as we played against a team that knew how to play and knew how to use the agents correctly, we dropped off in skill dramatically, which I kind of follow on Lauren's point. I feel like the CS boys initially, they will have all the leverage and their initial skill because it kind of flows like Counter-Strike in a lot of ways. But I feel like once the game evolves and the meta is kind of established and we started kind of working out what's the most abused agent, for example, I feel like that will kind of steady out. We'll see some other games kind of step up.
I think it'll play out a lot like how Overwatch did at the beginning, where you had a lot of players from TF2 that came over to Overwatch that did really well right away because it was really similar to TF2. But then as more maps got played, as like the esports structure was better, people from all these other games started to rise up. Like the Counter-Strike players have a huge advantage right now, right, in terms of how the game plays, like mechanically. But like Lauren said, like once you get some of these like younger Apex kids, like kids in the tier 2 of Overwatch who like were too young maybe to compete, but now they can in this. Like once they get like a month or 2 and just like the grind underneath them, I think you'll see them catch up really, really fast. I don't think it'll be that long.
Yeah, so Counter-Strike guys just get a little bit of a head start because so many things fall into that same bucket, right, of the gameplay. Like one thing I noticed, I watched a lot of Hiko.
Sure.
Hiko, who plays Breach, but I would close my eyes and just listen to like the first half of their round, you know, from when they're buying to when they're kind of deciding where they're going to go. I could have been listening to a Counter-Strike match, literally.
Yeah.
All right, I need to drop. Okay, let's go B. Let's mid split. Like everything. Those guys are even saying shit like T and CT, right? But then about halfway through the round, you hear something like, "Fuck! There comes an arrow! Holy shit! I'm stunned! Fuck! I can't move!" And like, okay, you're not watching Counter-Strike anymore. But that very initial phase leans right into a Counter-Strike player's wheelhouse, right? Look at the money. What are we gonna do? And I think you're right. I think once everyone learns that, especially those that have never maybe played Counter-Strike, that advantage goes away, right? Even
I just to knock on from that point though, I don't want to take nothing away from the CS players as well. Like obviously they're winning it, they don't need more praise. But like Hiko playing Breach was a bit of a pocket choice as well. Everyone kind of theorized Phoenix was the flash guy. He was your go-to player. Most people were running that comp. And then Hiko showed what you can do with Breach and how to utilize the ultimate ability, how to delay plants. Like they are being creative. They just have such a good fundamental basis that learning all the extra stuff is just, it's even quicker for them. Whereas everyone else has to catch up initially. I like what they're doing though. Like even Cypher coming into play, like I think it was Brax who started to play and then everyone realized he's an S tier pick. He's a straight lock-in. The information he can bring is huge. So it's like these guys are being creative. They just have such a, you know, a quick jump on the curve of abilities that they're able to start refining some of those. But as you said, like the Apex kids, these guys grind. I mean, like the hours they put in are relentless. I mean, I've been playing a lot and I'm being dwarfed in comparison to some of these guys with their hours. So they're just grinding hard at the moment.
Well, and I think one thing to keep in mind is what we're also seeing a lot of, and again, it goes back to the observing so far, and like the tournaments so far, I wouldn't say are professional. Well, there are no professional Valoranters. Well, maybe Brax is going to be considered one because he got signed. But these are a lot of streamers. These are a lot, maybe ex-pro streamers, but they're streamers now, right? And that's how they make their bread and butter. So it'll be very interesting when we transition to pure teams getting paid to play the game. Maybe they're not entertainers. Maybe they're just players, right? And that might take months. But right now, most of the events, like the event you did, Pansy, you guys casted, but it was still, I'll use Twitch Rivals as kind of the premier example of it, meaning that the production value is jumping from individual POVs, right? Hiko's stream, then Ska's stream, then Shroud's stream. So it kind of a different observing world for you as a caster, for one, but also these guys might not even be the real pros when the time comes, right? Because they're also streamers, right? The top Counter-Strike players in the world don't really stream for a living. They stream when they've got time. Kid like Simple, right? So it'll be very interesting again, when this game gets even, when we're out of maybe got to get a key and everyone can get a key and it's very easy. Like when the real hardcore kids grab this thing, and no offense to Hiko, Scout, any of those guys, they might be them, but they've also got this whole other thing they will continue to do for a living. So I think they got a head start, but I think like it's going to go away. I think it'll go.
The best player in Valorant could very well be sitting in a chat just spamming exclamation point drops for all we know. I mean, we have no clue. I mean, you have no clue. Like, there's not enough people playing the game, right? I mean, you need to get it out in the wild before I think we start to see like pro teams really form and play at like the highest level.
Yeah. And I know we want, like, obviously, maybe not you, Matt, but us as Counter-Strikers. Well, Lauren, you're all over the place, but you're also a Counter-Striker. I give you that. You're a Counter-Striker in my heart.
Just generally.
We obviously like want to root for Hiko and gang, right? Or any Counter-Striker. Yeah, best game, beating everybody in another game.
Yeah.
Jason, we were having a meeting about this show, and Jason brought up a really valid point when we were kind of comparing Counter-Strikers to everybody else. Jason's point was, yes, these guys are the Counter-Strike pros playing Valorant. But if these 5 guys rolled into an ESL event, rolled into Flashpoint, they would get their ass kicked by the real current Counter-Strike pros. And that's no offense to Scout or Hiko, right? So they're our best, but they're not even the game's best, right? In the sense of Counter-Strike. So anyway,
I think we're falling into a little bit of a trap there. Just comparing them so directly. I think we're falling into a little bit of a trap by comparing the two games so directly. Like I know that they are similar genres, but that's one thing I really wanted to touch on is the fact that we are making that direct comparison so often, which I think is almost a mistake. Like, the definitely a lot of Counter-Strike interest in the game. It feels like we're focused too much on that almost.
It's almost like some of the Rainbow Six systems plus some Counter-Strike stuff.
Yeah, let's get into it. It was going to be talked about later, but you brought up a good point. Let's kind of the elephant in the room is this is a Counter-Strike killer. It's just like Counter-Strike, but better. It's going to destroy Counter-Strike. Valve is now making crosshair changes because it's in Valorant. They're freaking out in Valve's headquarters right now because of this game. Oh, doom and gloom. Meanwhile, our player base broke another record while this is in beta, like last weekend. So we're still growing. Yeah. So overall thoughts, yes, it has some systems from Counter-Strike. It has some systems from other tactical FPSs, no doubt. Is it a Counter-Strike killer, or is it just going to sit on its own shelf over here like Counter-Strike does, like Rainbow does, like unfortunately Quake does in its own little world? You know what I mean?
I think it kind of exists more like how like League of Legends didn't kill Dota and Dota didn't kill League of Legends. I think they can both exist side by side and just push each other further, right? Like now maybe Counter-Strike puts out more stuff, maybe then Valorant puts out more stuff. And I think the competition between the two is just good for the overall tech shooters, right? If both games become better, there's enough players that would play both or have enough time to play both that you'll have really healthy player bases across both. And then I think you even look like further, like, Rainbow Six players, the Call of Duty, Overwatch, like there's so many games that Valorant could like pull from that I think it helps everybody, right? Like it helps the Call of Duties and the Overwatches, CSGOs, it helps everybody, I think.
It pushes everyone to be better, which I think is the most important thing. Yeah. I feel like Valve have definitely shown some signs. I think that's a direct reaction from Valorant, like the positive reactions it's got. And it's kind of, when I was like one of the first people to tweet about Valorant in general, right? It was kind of one of my intentions with the final tweet when I said like, this is going to be the next big thing. It's the best game has played since CSGO, right? I was trying to kind of let them know that they really need to pull their finger out their asses at this one, because this is a really good game. And if you do rest in your laurels, Counter-Strike could slip off the #1 spot, but I don't think it will, because they've got enough time to react and they're doing some very good things as of late.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I think it's a lazy comparison with CS these days. Now, like once we've gone past the initial kind of, it looks like Counter-Strike, the thing is they've taken elements of FPS games that have been kind of the golden rules that maybe people don't necessarily know of, like the rule of 3 coming into map design, which obviously having Volcano is a wonderful helping tool of that. You've got an economy, which is nice because we don't need another Call of Duty, right? You don't need another able to buy every round. They've added a nice little kind of ebb and flow to it, which works in League of Legends as well. You have the economy system kind of coming into play in other games. It's lent from a lot of good games and it's drawn it through to one place. I think the changes we'll see over time will probably take it further away from Counter-Strike, if anything. I think those changes will eventually come in down the line. So, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think as a starting block, it's a good point to be where they're at right now. I think the way the guns work needs to change slightly. I think the way the characters are being focused or agents are focused needs to change slightly. It's a work in progress. If you look at, I guess, Counter-Strike, when you saw the first game of it, who was playing? It was NIP-ish against someone. It was like that horrible show match, wasn't it? I can't remember. Yeah. It was just. And you look at then and you look at now how different the game is. I think it's pinch of salt still with this. It's good to be able to see a game so fleshed out in this state, but it should not be considered its final form. And I don't think anyone in the industry should be naive enough to think this is where it's gonna be in the future. It's definitely gonna evolve from here, but yeah, starting blocks are pretty good though to lend from the classic titles. I'm glad it's not too big to ignore that. It's taken it on board.
Yeah, and again, I tweeted like after I played, I mean, this game's going to dominate. It'll be an incredibly popular global game. It just will be. Riot's going to put it in its pipeline of global distribution and all those kind of things.
Yeah.
And so therefore, it'll be an incredibly popular esport. League of Legends is the #1 game on the planet. It's also the most watched esport on the planet. Player base and viewership do correlate. Not a perfect correlation, but the more people that care and play your game every day, the more apt to care about the pros playing it. They go hand in hand. That's why when we look at player bases declining, we worry that the esports numbers go down, right? Because they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
But that brings up kind of the question: if it's not a Counter-Strike killer, do we just live in a world where there's no gray anymore, where like you have to be on one team or the other? Like you're either Team Valorant or Team Counter-Strike. Like Henry, you're gonna get shit in this game. You know what I mean? Like there is no gray anymore. Why can't I like both?
No, I do like both. I play both.
Like I got shit.
Yeah.
Like before we went into quarantine, I did a show every week called The Breakdown, right? Live in the studio. Half the show was always Counter-Strike talk. Generally, the second half was me ranting about something to do with Counter-Strike. The minute we did a Valorant show, guy hits me on Twitter. Oh, that's great. You opened this fucking company and you're doing fucking Valorant coverage? Fucking sellout, fucking dickhead. And Jason and I are like, what the fuck planet am I on? Like, am I only allowed to do Counter-Strike content? Like, fuck that, you know? So
it became uncool to like multiple games.
Fuck.
How dare you,
yeah. So how do you guys feel? If you all, I would say, Lauren, you have less of a home game right now. I would say last year your home game was PUBG. Henry, you got a home game, and Matt, you got a home game. Do you feel that the crowds and the fans that you've built off of that are gonna? And I'm not saying you guys are gonna shift gears and do other games, but like, do you worry that like you're in a box, you're in your games box, and you can't?
I don't, just because I've gone from Call of Duty to Overwatch, and then I've done some other stuff before, and people come across. But I think in terms of like Valorant, like why can't we all just enjoy the game, right? I think I enjoy lots of other games that I don't broadcast or don't work on. I play a ton of World of Warcraft. I played an unsafe amount of Fortnite. I was like a little kid. I was just like building over people. I was trapping people. I thought the beginning of Fortnite was some of the most fun I've had like gaming. Like I think it's just the way kind of communities are now. They're super protective of their broadcasters and content creators in their community, that to see them go do something else is like a big shock. But we all play games. I mean, that's why we're all fucking here. Like, if we didn't like games, like I wouldn't be broadcasting games. I'd be doing something else. So I think like, we all play different games. It's just kind of a process with the industry of how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, Scott, if they're going to come at me, especially, I've just given them 28 fucking days in a row of EPL. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I'm still grinding with Counter-Strike, and I'm just about another 20 days. So I definitely love playing Valorant, but I still, CS is my main game. I've played like 5 games via CA today. For me, it's still the best game. Like, for me, like personal opinion, I played Valorant a lot with Lauren. The first few days, we were playing every day. Kind of, you've probably noticed me not playing as much because I go back to CS because that's where I belong. That's my game. And like I love the other games, but it's not like it has to be one or the other. It's just what I prefer playing Counter-Strike. It's the only game I've really ever played. You know what I mean? Yeah, I
mean, even with us, we play like 2-3 hours of Valorant, but then we'll play like 4 hours of Overwatch at night and just stream it and whatnot. I've always been a fan. I mean, I love Counter-Strike. I played like 1,500 hours of Counter-Strike. I love Valorant, but sometimes I'm not in that mental space to play something where I need to focus really hard. And I'm like, okay, I want to play a respawn game mode where I can just jump in and just fuck some shit up and then just die and come back. Where that's for me like Overwatch, right? It's a shooting game where I can kind of take my own pace at it.
And, one of the issues I have,
like for me in this as well, like it's a privileged spot for, like, I guess to a degree both Mr. X and Henry have, in the degree that their main games haven't died. You've got, let's say you came from Call of Duty and you went to Overwatch, that's a choice. Call of Duty wasn't dead. It's it's still doing its thing, right? It's like that's a nice choice. You got to pick that out. Henry, Counter-Strike never seems to die, so it's like you can just grind that forever. Like COD 4 on PC died the moment that Activision decided PCs aren't around anymore. Fuck them, we're going console. Fair enough, it's their player base. Enemy Territory and RTW died 10 plus years ago. It was a matter of like survival. If you look at it for certain like players and commentators out there, it's like you got to be able to jump across it. So it's like, for me, I look at it as, I remember being a viewer and watching Quake, RTW, Enemy Territory, 1.6, Source. You know, I enjoyed all of that. That FPS world was like under a banner, and I hope the Valorant can fit into that. I don't think it's going to draw anyone, you know, away from these other games as well. You might just be more selective. You may not watch every single game of EPL now. You might just watch the bigger games. You might watch just, you know, these tournaments.
There's a lot of people out there who are not FPS fans in general, right? If anything, if it just introduces them to tactical shooters, like that's a great thing in general. I feel like just to get understanding that genre, and it kind of, I would say it's a less hardcore version of CS in terms of the mechanics. So it's a lot of nice access into that sort of genre. Maybe it'll bring more Counter-Strike players in, actually. Like it's kind of one of those things. It's a great game. It doesn't have to be hated or a direct competitor to the other. It just can be a gateway to actual FPS titles.
And now where I found where the comparison for me to Counter-Strike is spot on is I have to play in a 5-stack. And I have to play with people that want to win and play the game right. I cannot, and I haven't, and I'm not good at Counter-Strike, never was.
Oh my God.
But for 20 years, I could never just pub that game, right? I get too frustrated, like, fuck this game. If you're not going to listen, if you're not going to save, you're ruining this for me. I'm not going to play with you, right? So, and Jason, very much the same way. Like, so too competitive. In this game already, I was like, this game sucks if you're solo queuing. God damn it. And, you know, trash talking and people being toxic. Any multiplayer game that's a team game now is like that, right? But that'll be, to me, I'm like, this is just like Counter-Strike. I'm getting yelled at. This is great. Jason's mad. This is Counter-Strike all over again, right? So it's perfect. Sideways remembers the chat. Like it, so I don't play it that much. I watch a lot. This game already. Same with Counter-Strike. Don't play it. Watch it a lot. I find it incredibly entertaining, but incredibly frustrating to play, right? Unless you're with 4 buddies and you're all trying together, right? Had that problem with Overwatch.
Yeah, well, luckily for me, I live with 5 other guys right now, and we get to 5-stack Valorant or CS. That's one of the only perks I can give you. Is living with 5 guys. We get the 5-stack on LAN every single day. I can tell you, Valorant, the 5-stack ever created, and we killed it. We've been having a great time. So it was a good game. I agree.
Yeah, I've been left out.
Have the
like,
5-man
stack. You know,
you're left out.
You've got Stunner in, and I've been shipped off. I'm off to solo queue, Henry. It's a whole world out there. You know, you've just fucked me off.
It's brutal in the solo queue world.
Let's shift to the meta of agents and guns. And again, as Pansy has said, as I've said, work in progress, still a closed beta. You got to get a key from a drop. It's not like it's an open beta and everyone can beat on this thing. A lot of people are beating on it. Guns, maps, everything. I think a lot of things that Riot didn't catch, they're now catching. So we've got patches coming, bug fixes, all that. But let's talk about the general aspect of agents first and then guns. So where this dramatically differs from Counter-Strike is they've got agents that have different sets of abilities that are technically supposed to be utility. So if we do make that comparison, it's supposed to be our mollies, our flashes, and our nades in Counter-Strike for zoning, for taking space, for blocking space, all those kind of things, right? Less about damage. And until the closed beta started, but a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, that's kind of what the agents all were built for. Yes, they all have different looking smokes and different looking stuns and slows, but the idea of what their powers did was roughly the same, right? But then here comes Raze, right? Now, and if you don't know who Raze is a very different agent than all the rest of them. Agents are supposed to have abilities that are complementary and secondary. According to a Riot interview in 2019, you're not supposed to be killing with these things. You're not supposed to be overpowered with these things. They're supposed to assist the gunplay. This agent is broken, or they've changed their philosophy. What do you all think of that?
I thought she was I thought she was incredibly busted when we first started playing. but then the more I play it, I don't mind her as much. The only thing I really kind of mind is like the ultimate, like being able to just like nuke me down from wherever. But I do think like
I guess I
forces you to play around her more than anybody else.
It's one of those things, like, once everyone got used to it after a few days, like, it was annoying for the first 2, I think. And then, like, once everyone started saying, she's got the ult, you can see the opponent's money and whether they got their ults. So you got no real excuse. You run into it, like, that's your bad. You just need to get better, unfortunately. Like, so I understand why people are annoyed with it. I agree. I don't like the mechanic. But at the same time, it's not like it's happening every round. The grenades are a bit much, but again, I've played a lot of it. I've just tell your teammates, don't go into the main choke point at the start of the round. You won't get naded. Like, that's kind of it. You just got to play it smart.
I like the theory of that, but the problem is you will have to be in a choke point. The map design is very heavy choke points. I look at the top left. Every single part of this, apart from sites and spawns, is choke points, right? So you get a good player on this. You like watch Dizzy in some of these tournaments. He was playing that so well. You've got so much movement ability with the satchels. You can punish people without them having a way to get out. There's no big counter to the grenades. The ultimate, she makes a loud noise and it's got a time down. You can just don't stack up, move away. Like there's ways to deal with the ultimate. I think that make it a little bit more expensive, a little less splash damage. Sure, tweak that up. The nades, I'd say the one bigger issue for me is the fact that if she satchels in, throws a nade down, your choke point's fucked. And they can do that off 0 information. You've got 2 to play with. It's pretty harsh. And obviously with the slowing effect in this game, once you receive damage, you're going to find it hard to move out of it. So it's like, I would say for me, Raze, if played well, can be OP. I know she was banned in a lot of the in-house games, like the 10-mans, a lot of the, quote-unquote, better players are running. She was banned for a lot of it. They were just trying to play without it, which I think is a problem because she's going to be in the game anyway. You might as well just play it. But the issue is, I'd say her nades are a little too strong or they're too cheap. You've got to find a way because there's nothing else that can really do damage without information off the back of it like that. That's
her
not
nades
a gun,
didn't
right?
cluster, they wouldn't be that bad.
It's the cluster, right? If it's the first bit of damage is fine by me, it's the second part that's just harsh.
I feel like this stems from like the real velocity of the game, though. This is like the fact you save your utility even if you die. I think this is the main problem with the game because you keep your grenades right. So let's say you have an eco round, you bought your grenades, you bought everything else. If you die and didn't use any of that, you get to keep that for the following round. That for me is just the main issue of the game right now. Like if they can sort that out, that won't be such an issue. We won't have grenades every single time. Like if they're actually a little bit more expensive and you're not keeping them every time you die, you've got to be a bit more frugal with them. Then we slow that right down. We kind of nip that in the bud before it gets going. I think that would actually solve almost every issue we have Valorant right now.
I'm so glad you said that because it's something when you come into the economy as well. Like if you look at the way let's move out of just the damage dealing ones. You look at all the abilities because they can be free. They're not all paid for as well. They can be time replenished. So like Omen smokes free. They're 30-second cooldown, I think. Who else has it for free? There's a couple of others that I think Brimstone gets one for free as well.
Arrows free.
So you look at the information you can get. Exactly, right? It's like you look at why there's so many of these economy rounds or eco rounds where they've got just sheriffs, frenzies, or ghosts. You still get free smokes to play with, potentially 3 every round, depending on your composition. If you are in CS, having 3 smokes plus a deagle plus everything else, that could really create something, whereas here it's free. So you're seeing a lot of those rounds that shouldn't be as easily won being quite easily won. I think the economy needs to be tweaked when it comes to those abilities too, because right now you're getting a lot for free. You're getting a lot of opportunities for free, which, yes, it equals out because the defenders somewhat have the same, but it doesn't equate. If you have 5 players rushing at you with, sheriffs that are very accurate over a decent amount of time, sure, you've got to hit your shot still, but you have your 3 free smokes, you have a couple of your abilities, you can make a round happen very comfortably.
Yeah, I mean, you could put together a bunch of, just thinking off the top of my head, like, Viper Wall is like a free ability. You get 1 Brimstone Smoke, a Jet Dash.
You're in the site.
You're in the site, yeah.
Yeah, for free. Yep. Yeah. While you guys were talking, we did show an article that has Raze being discussed, and Riot has commented, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Morello, I think his first name might be Matt even, works for Riot. Unrelated
not me.
To you, I don't know. Yeah. Matt's a dev, I didn't even know it. Jason, get him a new title. And they're looking at it. Some of the things he mentions is, I think one of the changes is removing the second grenade, but providing a kill reset to get that second grenade, like some of the other agents use, kills as a reward to restock your booty. And then they're also looking at the cluster grenades having a smaller area of effect, as well as tweaking the audio cues that Raze gives to everybody else, so this shit is coming. So they're looking at it. They definitely don't have their head in the sand, but it brings up we'll come back to the gun economy because, again, it's not like Counter-Strike in the sense that you have to really worry about your money right now, whether it's for your utility or for guns, right? Maybe too much money, too easy to have a good economy. But what I want to also talk about is just the general idea of a game like this lives and breathes by adding more agents. You add more champions to League of Legends. You add more heroes to games, right? In Overwatch. Counter-Strike doesn't do shit but add skins, right? To the and we have agent skins, but we don't change what the agent does, right? So this game, in a year from now, will have a shitload more raises and
completely different,
you know, more agents. So how do they keep the mantra that all these new people are only going to have roughly all the same abilities, right? It's going to keep changing their meta every goddamn time, right?
It's going to be pretty difficult in terms of balance, right? Because you have a lot of core abilities and concepts like already in the game in terms of like slows, flashes, you know, mollies, movement. I think the one area they could probably explore even further is like movement abilities, like how Jet really has like the jump and then the dash. Like movement, they haven't explored like a ton, so I think there's an open opportunity there. But I think the more that you flood it with agents that do the same thing, it kind of takes away from what makes some of them special, right? Like if if you added a character or an agent that had a flashbang, like it doesn't make like Breach and Phoenix feel as impactful. At that point, you're almost picking off of like, okay, well, who has the best ultimate? Who has the best like signature ability to just use with it? So I think that it'll be a very delicate balance, but it seems like they're willing to give the agents a ton. Like Sage has a wall, she has slow, she has heal, she has res. Like that's a lot in one kit. So it seems like they're willing to invest heavy in the agents in terms of their kits to make them playable, which is a good thing to see.
I feel like there's one too many spells though per character. I'm just going to say that generally. I feel like there's almost too much going on per character. There's too much to rely on. I play Sage, right? And I feel like if I fuck up in the most catastrophic way, I've got so much to get me out of this. I can heal myself back to full health. I can ice them out twice for $100, which is like a Molotov. And that's insane. I can ice wall myself out into safety. Like, so it feels like I've got so many crutches. If I mess up, I can fall back to. And I find the game. We'll move on to gun mechanics, I'm sure later. Like in terms of shooting as well, I think they've made it much easier to kind of be good at the game. Generally speaking, in terms of gun mechanics, they made the hitboxes bigger. It feels more satisfying. It feels like the head's about twice the size. A CS headbox to do the direct comparison. I said I wouldn't. But it just feels like it's one of those things where there's too many spells going right now, and I think it's going to be one of the most ambitious and difficult games to balance in general, because when you bring in one new character, it's going to kind of shift the entire meta of the entire game, right? Like it's going to be like similar to Overwatch, I suppose, and the way they've had to deal with that. We all know it's been really a nightmare. It's been one of the massive talking points of that. I feel like they will be smart about it. They will introduce like a veto system for the agents, as it were. But I feel like for me, they're too overpowered in terms of the abilities right now, and I feel like I was one of the people saying, oh, they're more like this utility, but now we're kind of seeing, as you said, Scott, that we're seeing more lethal abilities come through.
Right. Yeah. I think the thing that they can learn probably is like, Overwatch, there's so many abilities in the same type of thing. So many characters, 32, just a ton of abilities, ton of different combinations that in Overwatch, we see like they make a small adjustment to a character like Mei, and she becomes insta-pick. She becomes unbelievable, instantly good, like can dominate the game. Like that's the scary part, is like, because they'll eventually get to a point with balance where you look at agents that are near the bottom of playtime and it's like, okay, well, what do we do? Like, imagine Sage is at the bottom of game playtime, right? It's like, well, how do you get her better? Like, you're going to make that utility better. Then she becomes oppressive, right? And then that combos with somebody else. And then it becomes like a really difficult thing to figure out, because you don't want to balance another character just based off of their interactions with one other. It would be just not right.
I mean, we just think of the Counter-Strike stuff, and like we lose our minds over a tweak to one gun that everybody uses, let alone one agent that is only special to it. That is, like you said, that is a challenge of making this game in general, Henry, is to keep this. And again, it'd be similar to MOBAs and all those other things, but In a shooter, it's kind of a different beast. And I think even Quake Champions had a problem when they decided to go this route with different characters and different kits and shit. So it'll be very, very interesting. Let's get into guns, though. Agents and guns.
Yeah.
So the guns are more standard. I don't see them obviously adding guns every month and every week. It seems like we've got a nice plethora of guns from, pistols, SMGs, etc. A couple questions.
Yep.
First off, did you see any guns that were OP? And are you already seeing guns that no one's using because they suck and they're just not worth it for the value? What are you guys seeing in the gunplay so far?
I mean, I think the thing that I've
honestly
seen, it's like Phantom versus Vandal, really. Yeah, Phantom versus Vandal, I think. Like, that's like the main one where I think I see more people trending towards the Phantom because they find it more reliable. Which, I mean, I guess when I play, I kind of feel that the Phantom is a little bit more reliable than the Vandal as well. Sometimes, like, the Vandal, like, I feel like you have a headshot and it just doesn't do anything, where the Phantom, it feels like you can just spray down multiple people at a time.
Yeah, I mean, technically the thing is as well, like, the Vandal is meant to be your AK, right? Like, traditionally, it's meant to be your headshot machine. You're meant to be able to kind of treat it as such. It's just hard. It's hard to use where the Phantom's relatively easy. The damage drop-off is there. I think, honestly, if you want to look at balancing it out, the Phantom almost needs to be... I don't want it to be nerfed because I like it being a choice. But the Phantom's just a lot easier. The maps don't play to long range. You can't really play it like you would necessarily an AK to a degree, where you might just kind of like shoulder peek out, a little bit of jiggle peek on that, and you're just trying to outdo maybe an AWP. On this, you don't really get that opportunity. It's quite close quarter angles. So for me, the Phantom's always going to be a little bit easier to play with and a little bit less punishing, whereas if you mess up on the Vandal, you're not going to get back anything. You know what I mean? I haven't seen anyone who's not maybe picking mid on, is it Haven, I'm thinking? Picking a Vandal all the time. And that's because they can't afford maybe an operator yet. So I don't think, honestly, the Vandal's quite in a good enough place, even though technically it should be viable.
Okay. Are the guns expensive enough? Is the economy really there? Do you have to worry about it yet? Or is it too early to really tell?
In its current state, I would say that the economy, it definitely needs some changes here. It's way too forgiving. I feel like it's been designed to make sure people have something every single round, and already teaching them the ways of being broke and having to work hard for things and being financially sound.
Is that not just like a change of the game, though, to make it more accessible than like a game like Counter-Strike?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's absolutely fair, but I feel like it waters it down. For something that has abilities that are so powerful, it goes back to my point of being able to keep those and not having to reinvest in that. And it's like that. It's more the abilities I have a problem with than the guns. I think the guns are fine. The armor's whatever. It's the abilities I think are too cheap.
Would you be okay if like they did something where? If they made it like
saying, like, because it's MR12, you've got to be careful with it, right? Because you don't have the time to rebuild the economy like you do in CS. So it's like you don't want to be on more than maybe one reset, otherwise you're just getting hammered, and it kind of sucks as a playing experience. As much as though I like Quake when you're getting beat down and you're getting fucked on the timers and you've got someone like counting armor on you, you just lose, right? Like if you've been outdone, you lose. That's it. But this isn't meant to be a harsh learning curve yet, I don't think, but I would like, when you are on the pistols, to not feel so fucking strong, because right now I think that I swear to God, when I play with people and you have to play together on pistol rounds, attack or defense, we win them more often than we lose them. I swear to God, because this game is rewarded by that. Playing as a competition, playing together as a team, bring it into close range sites, making people use their abilities to, actually work as a team. The pistol rounds themselves too good. I think for me the pistols are almost too overpowered. They're too good at what they do. When you watch Nico smash some people with a deagle, you're like, I can't do that. That looks sick to me. I want to learn that. But I pick up a sheriff, I'm pretty solid at it, and I'm shit with a deagle. Like, I never played
a Valorant pro with the deagle right now, the sheriff. Sorry, it seems like everyone's got their own clips on Twitter. Like everyone, the people I know are shit at FPS games as well. So there's a whole thing out there.
I think they should be made harder, because again, you can walk and you can crouch with very almost no punishment to your I guess bullet spread, and pistols themselves are so powerful. I think they, if anything, need to be toned down a little bit, because honestly, if you're like, I like the Spectre, I like to run SMGs, I like to be aggressive, but in this game, if you're picking a Spectre and light armor, you might as well buy the Sheriff with full armor at the same sort of cost point, because you're honestly going to provide more than doing. So you kind of, eliminating some of the viability of the lower end of the economy, I feel, at the moment, just because, as I said, you're not going to be on many pistol rounds, but when you're on them, you should feel like you're at a disadvantage.
Yeah, it just seems like it's economy light right now. Like, again, maybe too forgiving. But Matt, you bring up a really valid point. Again, a lot of developers on this game come from Counter-Strike. So Sal and the crew understand the idea of losing pistol back in the day and literally having to throw away your next 2 or 3 rounds to then save up. And we changed the money system and the number of rounds. Well, we tried to change the money system. When that didn't work, we changed the rounds to compensate, to give you some chance to catch back up to that economy. Sal has already said we're going back to 12. We don't need the extra rounds because we made it more forgiving. So totally could be a design choice. But
yeah, I think it definitely is.
It's almost like you gotta punish a little bit. You can't have the system there and not punish bad use of your economy, because that's the storyline you all talk about. They didn't save and now they're fucked, right? Or it's a risk if they save. Oh, they won a save round. That's insane shit.
Yeah, I barely see anyone save. At least when I play, I haven't watched a bunch of the tournaments. Lauren could probably give me some updates on this. Like, in terms of saving weapons, has actually happened that often? I haven't noticed anyone, when I've been playing at least, save a thing.
I mean, yes and no. I think it's quite rare, but you are seeing people doing it. You're seeing people use the Sage Res just to be able to get someone back up. Yeah. They just have to rebuy armor then, right? It's yes and no. If they are looking like it's a close back and forth game, they'll use some of that kind of saving concepts to come in. Yeah. But it's few and far between, and it's mostly the CS guys I'm seeing doing it for now, who are already in that mindset of it's unwinnable. Let's just look at the next round ahead. But being able to see the opponent's money as well kind of plays into that, because you're like, is it even worth it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you get a lot of free information in this game.
That is also true. Way more than in Counter-Strike. All right, well, that's a good first half of our show. We're going to take a quick break. So if you guys have to go to the bathroom or get something to drink, if our fans at home have to do the same, I have to do it. We'll be right back in about 3 minutes, folks. We're going to talk about anti-cheat, all that other stuff we still got to talk about. Anti-cheat, big tournaments coming up. ESPN starts tournament today. Don't go away. Back after the break.
Let's go.
All right, welcome back to Valoranting Do Not Peak Entertainment's maybe weekly show, maybe not, maybe with these guys, maybe with other people. We don't know. It's a fucking COVID-19 world we're living in right now. Welcome back, guys. I've jumped all over the place on this run of show. Sorry, Jason. So we're kind of out of order on stuff. I talked about some stuff early. What I want to hit before we kind of get into some esports stuff that's happening soon and agents that work well together and picks and stuff that we've seen. Let's talk about this anti-cheat, right? Because it's blown up as a global piece of news about this game, right? Whether you're ever going to play the game or not. If you're not familiar at home, Riot has maybe enabled the most invasive anti-cheat for a game on the planet. It runs when you boot your PC, not when you boot the game. It's a ring 0 kernel, if you will, RAID 0, ring 0. I don't know. I'm not a networking computer guy, but basically very evasive, very much at the core of when your PC starts, it starts. It started a whole conversation about, is Tencent monitoring this? Can they take all your information and give it to China? Does it need to be this evasive to be good anti-cheat? We all know how bad cheating is in gaming, let alone in FPS games. Yeah. Literally ruins the experience. They've said a lot of things about how it's, why they've come out and said why they did it this way versus other ways. They've put a big bug bounty up, which, if you're not familiar, a lot of companies will run a bug bounty to hackers and people like that to say, break our shit. If you break our shit, we pay you. Right? You tell us you broke it, show us how you did it, so we can fix it, and we'll pay you, right? It's a bounty system. They had it for League of Legends. They've increased it for Valorant. They want someone to break their anti-cheat, and they want someone to show that their kernel is a security flaw, right? Because they don't think it is. I don't know if it is. I don't know anything about that world of computers. All I know is I hate cheaters in video games, right? There's nothing worse, especially in a shooter, right? And, as a Counter-Striker, it is the bane of matchmakers' existence, all those kind of things. So it's a fine moral line in the sense of like taking over your PC. But we're going to start with you, Lauren. Thoughts on, evasive anti-cheat. And I'm going to ask you a personal question. Would you uninstall over something like this? Do you still play it? Does it bother you personally?
It's a fine moral line, isn't it? Because honestly, what do you expect, right? No, there's no easy way to do it. There's no, if it was easy, Blizzard, Activision, someone would have done it right now. You look at the new Battle Royale, the Call of Duty stuff, it's being ruined by, it's trash right now. People are turning off crossplay. It's like, that was the whole thing, is being able to play with your school friends who are on Xbox. You know what I mean? Like, that's just garbage now. So it's like, do you want that or do you want this? There is no in between. I don't think anyone's found an in between yet. You look at, I guess, Face It, ESEA. You look at Punkbuster. Sadly, what a piece of shit that is. I mean, the thing is, like, all of these are somewhat invasive. Like, no one liked Punkbuster. That was fucking garbage. But it's like, at the end of the day, if there was a middle ground, I'm sure they would have found it by now. This is probably their idea of it. I think the only issue I have with it is, the back end of it being Tencent, the back end of that being, the China side of things. Yes, it would be stupid to deny that it's definitely going to cause some issues. I can imagine that people maybe just don't trust this as a source of where it's going towards. But again, how much does Tencent own in every single game? Like, you want to try and avoid Tencent? Good luck. I mean, pick your game. You're probably not going to be able to find it. So for me, I didn't like ESEA things. I don't think I have ESEA anymore because of what happened with that, even though that was such a thing in the past. Just because it was exploited. It was an issue, right? That's the thing. It actively was exploited. So for me, until it's a problem, I will err on the side of caution, but I also just am tired of so many FPSs being ruined by always never being sure, right? It's it's why people pay for Face It. It's why people pay for ESEA, or these private ability to play these games with a modicum of security, right? It's that idea that if I lose to someone, I want to sit there and go, fuck, they were just good. I want to learn. I want to get better. I don't want to sit there and go, why did he know I was there? How did that? You know what I mean? Like, that bit of doubt ruins a competitive game for me at any level. So it's pick your poison, I think, for me. And so for now, I'm taking a sip, but we'll see if it does get exploited. That's a different conversation.
Fair enough, Henry.
I agree with Lauren a lot there. Actually, I feel like it's such a difficult situation we find ourselves in with online games, with the kind of intrusive anti-cheat situation. I've been welcoming this for a long time, but I understand people's kind of fears going into it, feeling like it's going to be taking their data or farming their stuff. Just bear in mind, you walk around with a microphone in your pocket all day long anyway. So anyone,
as you post on Facebook, as you post on fucking Facebook, bitching about post on Facebook, like bitching about Riot's kernel. That makes a lot of sense.
The most I think that could ever happen from that, like they might farm some of your kind of user habits, something like that. I have no idea. Like for me, if it helps out the anti-cheat situation, I'm fine with it. As long as it doesn't I know it was fucking up other games or allegedly fucking up other games with FPS issues initially, but I think that was just a first round bug, right? And that's to be expected. I'm sure that'll be addressed and fixed. So for me, not a big deal. We've got nothing to hide. You've got nothing to fear. Should be embracing the anti-cheat and getting on board.
Yeah, I kind of agree with everything that's already been stated. I think too, you're always kind of, I mean, at least for me, playing Warzone was a ton of fun, and then it was ruined by cheaters. Fortnite was a ton of fun, and then it was ruined by cheaters. We've had cheating in Overwatch, like whatever, and especially because Valorant's a free-to-play game. Like the anti-cheat needs to be as strong as possible, or else it just ruins the experience for everybody. So I totally get why they've done what they've done with the anti-cheat, and I think there's obviously, like on Henry's point, like everyone walks around with like phones and Facebook and Twitter and all this, like your stuff is out there probably whether you like it or not. I don't think that's another reason like, oh, I'm cool with having it because of that, but I do think to have a anti-cheat that's this strong in a free-to-play game, it has to have this kind of level of access, which makes sense. And I think I'll err on the side of like Pansy, like I'll run with it and believe in it until something happens.
Yeah, I also want to add, like for me, real quick on that, take it further for me, like. Put it onto the side of having, you know, in CSGO matchmaking, you have a trusted account, right, where you've linked your phone number to it, and then you get put against trusted accounts. Let me do that as well. Like, I want to go as far as I can to try and make sure that I'm not going to, especially
take my number, my MySpace,
especially just take it. I don't care. Like, just like honestly, I'm so sick of just being fucking like hammered by like spin bots. But like honestly, I think the trusted thing's a good thing in FPS games as well. I think it needs to happen in Call of Duty just because it's a free-to-play game. Nothing stops you from just getting another account. Technically, they say they're doing IP bans, hardware bans. You get around it. It's make it as hard as possible for like to get into more and more levels of it. Like for me, I'd like to have like a trusted factor in there. I think that'd be a nice step in the right direction as well.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons that Counter-Strike finally did go to a much cheaper free-to-play model eventually when they made their anti-cheat a little better, because in talking to those devs at majors and stuff, they'd be like, if we open the floodgates and make this free-to-play right now, the cheaters will destroy our game. You know, we have to do some work before we lower that. It was only at $15, but there's still that $15 is and the account building process. When you make that like that for someone, they'll just cheat again, right? So now I'm a naturally paranoid guy, so like you know like. My camera is an NDI camera. It's on my network. Is someone stealing my camera? Like you said, this phone. Are we trusting Microsoft? Are we trusting Apple with our shit? Like, but we're not. So, like again, I hate cheaters, right? So I think it's a bold move. It's going to cost them in a PR front, but and especially if anything shady fucking happens, right? Because if anything shady happens, they've broken laws, right? They're not worried about pissing off Johnny Bravo. They're worried about pissing off governments at this point. If this thing is caught sending info to China, let's just call it that, they will get fucking busted hard, right? Not by the Chinese government. So I think it's a long stretch to think Riot is like literally farming my shit to give to China, right? Now, can someone hack that kernel? That isn't Tencent, that isn't Riot. Is that also an issue? Maybe. Now, what Riot has said, and we kind of scrolled through some of their news, is they've also started to consider that if this is too evasive and to not necessarily change how it works, but one of the things I read was that they might give you the ability, if you want, to click a button and uninstall the driver every time you're done playing. Now, what they've said, the downside of that is you're going to have to reboot your PC every time you want to play the game again, because that's how the kernel starts, right? So, but maybe that's a middle ground, right? For the people that are generally concerned, I'm not going to use the word paranoid because they might have real reason to be concerned. Maybe that is that middle ground that I can turn it off. and I only turn that back on and reinstall it, so to speak, and fire my PC back up when I'm going to fire the game back up, right? They go hand in hand. We'll see.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this is also, and maybe it's back to this like no gray area. A lot of people are just looking for fucking ammo to load in the anti-Riot gun. And I am not a Riot fan. I am not a fan of how they run their business. I don't play League of Legends. Played it like 2 hours my entire life. I do watch their production value of their finals and stuff. So I'm not a Riot fanboy or a Riot hater. Obviously, their corporate structure went through a whole bunch of fucking bullshit. They did a whole bunch of bad shit as a company. And they all got, dinged for it, so to speak. But it seems like people are looking, again, you're going after my game. So, there's people that don't even know what a fucking kernel does, that are up in arms over this, but they have no fucking idea what it even means, right? Because they're grabbing this fucking venom. And we've all done that with things we're against, like, another reason to hate you. Awesome. Let me bring that over here. But it seems like this is a little bit of that, plus a little bit of genuine concern, right? Because no one's done it like this before.
Yeah, I want to add as well. It's especially in this world. I've worked with a couple of developers, not your Valves, not the big guys, but maybe some smaller developers out there. They're always going to be reactive when it comes to cheats. They're the ones that set the bar, and everyone who makes cheats runs up, catches up, gets over it, and they have to keep changing. So you're already going to see cheats in this, but you've got to hope that they're instantly caught, instantly found, that it's not going to be a long-term issue. And that's what I'm hoping for here, because people go, well, I've already seen a cheat. It's already on Reddit. But you think, okay, well, has that then happened more and more, or have they been stopped? Have they been proactive in this? Have they continued to learn from this, or has it then turned into that Call of Duty, issue that's been running rampant, that now it's almost unplayable? So it's always going to be a catch up, but it's just hoping that they stay ahead rather than falling behind.
I feel like they're going to be fine then. Like the fact they've got that bounty hunt thing going on, like that is like the least corporate approach ever. You wouldn't see many other companies doing that, especially Valve, who are very private about that sort of thing and wouldn't ever kind of publicly advertise that. Probably wrong, they probably have, but it's just a general opinion. I feel like that's a wise move. They're really focusing on that. Like, sure, it might be a little bit controversial, but the main headline is that they're really taking anti-cheat seriously, which I think is very important, and it's a massive part of their success going forward as an FPS. It's one of the bane of our existences, is the fact we have to deal with that. So it's bad PR, but also good PR for the hardcore players, I think.
Well, and they obviously understand. Hang on a second, Matt. They obviously understand as businessmen and women who run Riot that if this is used by them, any of them, for nefarious purposes, and it gets out, like I said, not only would they be legally liable, their game is ruined. They're done. Right? There's no coming back from that. I mean, look how long it took ESCA, and they intentionally, some of them, maybe not everyone in the company, had a bit miner going, right? So, and that took them years. That stink is still on ESCA, right? That stink will never leave them. So I imagine, like, we all want to be paranoid and think they're selling shit to China, but I just think they're trying to stop fucking cheating.
No.
And yes, we did see some cheats. Hey, go ahead, Matt. You had a point.
Yeah, you're trying to stop the PR thing from going the other way of where Warzone is, where, hey, the game is ruined by cheaters, it's unplayable, don't play it. And then, now Call of Duty, they'll have to make a better anti-cheat, ban all those people. And then how do you get people to come back? Because they're already on doing other things. Like, for argument's sake, if Valorant was if their anti-cheat wasn't as invasive and it just let cheaters run rampant, everyone would just go back and play ESEA and play CSGO and just hang out. And then Valorant would have to play insane catch up. The PR would be a joke, right? And then you'd have to start all the way back from square one. Like, I'd rather have them take this approach.
Yeah, I think so. I agree. Yeah. And again, a lot of PR that they have to deal with and explain shit. But I'm not going to say much ado about nothing, but it seems like maybe a little bit of the paranoia is misplaced. But again, we'll see. I hope the bug bounty people aren't successful. I hope they can't break this shit. So let's talk a little bit about some of the upcoming tournaments, but I want to readdress the agent, not the agents themselves, but kind of the pick rates we're seeing so far. And I want to ask you guys if you're seeing some good synergies with, if you pick this one, you got to bring this one in with you. They go hand in hand together. You guys might not have seen this before. Guy on Reddit did this. This is a breakdown based on one tournament. It was the T1 tournament. It was the tournament that Hiko's team won, one of them. And it basically kind of tracked overall picks and overall wins on stuff. The first thing that jumped out to me right away, Let me pull it up on my screen because it's a little cut off for me.
Was right, yeah.
Sage, and again, small sample size, one tournament, a couple maps played, so to speak, in a 1-day tournament or 2-day tournament. But again, gives us something to start talking about. What immediately jumped out to me was 100% Sage pick. 100. That's the only one.
Yeah.
100%. Every
So
team has
we can't really use that, right? Because it's going to be 50-50 while that happens.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Every team's got one.
Yeah. So 100% Sage, obviously a lock-in no matter what you guys would say. Yeah.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, I mean,
Sage is
she's
easy lock. There's 3 that are full locks, in my opinion.
Yeah. What do you got?
That don't vary. So, Sage, Cypher, Brimstone. If you're playing current meta, they are your set pieces. They are your utility kits. I think Cypher's going to become more popular as more people learn how to play him. He wasn't someone who was unlocked at the very start. Yep. It's going to become, because bear in mind, this tournament had high-end, mid-tier, and then some lower-end players. So you're not going to see this is a full competitive lobby, but it's a good lobby. It's a good variety pack of comfort picks alongside insta-locks. So I'd say those 3 are your 100% lock-ins just because of their utility kit. And then you have variety picks on, let's say, your entry fragger, ability, whether it be a Phoenix or a Breach. And then the last one, pick whatever you want, really. So those, I'd say, are your insta-locks right now, which is somewhat represented there. I think, Phoenix and Breach around the same picks. Yeah, it's basically that. I'd say Jet, if anything, is probably going to be dropped out. Yeah, I think if anything, Jet will eventually go down. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then,
that's about it.
So that 3-pack of yours, that's a lock-in. It's also a lock-in because they work really well together, right? They're complementing kind of each other's skill set to get in, hold sight, all those things, right?
They basically, so Sage is always going to be an all-rounder because of what she can do, right? Like, that's just what it is. She has the full utility kit. She has the only revive in the game. It's massive. She has time to be bored with her wall. Cypher is such an information piece. His ultimate is just ridiculous. It can reveal everyone on the map, and it's pretty easy to get. He has his own smokes in a way with his cage. He can literally slow people in them as well. And he has tripwires, so you're completely safe from a flank. His utility kit is, again, very strong. Brimstone, you need for smokes to sights or delaying on defense. He works on both sides. Everything else is engage and then a little bit of a personality pick. So those 3 are purely picked because of their utility kits and what you need every round, regardless. You're always going to need smokes down. You can't just walk into a site unless you're doing just like a contact piece, but eventually you still want those smokes. So they're 100% picks and they should be every time. If you're not running them, you should be.
Okay. Anything different to add to that, gentlemen?
I mean, Brimstone with the ability to just drop smokes from really anywhere, from like his kind of tablet on his hand, is just like you can't not bring him. And then even the ability to just like completely back off of a site after a plant and then just drop an ult down on top of it, like giving them no way to counterplay that is just it's insane, right? So I think Brimstone is an unreal pick. I think, like Lauren said, I think Cypher's one agent that even when I've been playing, I've been just trying to trend towards, because he's so useful for just, even when you're just like pugging around, just like solo queuing, like you would block off an entire side of the map with him. Just put a camera, put a few tripwires, and just leave it there. And just, okay, now I can go help over here. No, you get one kill, and then you get one kill, and then you throw his ultimate out. You could see where everybody else is. Like, it's an insane type of mechanic, which I think is only going to get stronger in time with how more people play him. And then, I mean, Sage, I don't think you really need a huge explanation of why she's 100% pick rate. I mean, her kit combines everything from the Overwatch heroes that everybody has the most issues with. Like, it combines like the Mei wall with the Mei slow plus a Mercy res and the heal, puts them on one character. Like that's what we were joking around when we saw it as the Overwatch guys. You're like, oh, these people don't know what they're in for. Like, we have that on multiple characters and it's an issue when they're together. Like, they just have that on one. Like, good luck with that. Like, she's got. Yeah, but you can't remove stuff from her kit like already, right? You have to let it keep playing out.
Yeah,
I feel like just for her in general, it's a slow orb for me is the biggest problem. That's like the most overpowered thing in the game for me, at least. As someone who played CS Source, like it feels like it's got the mechanics of Source with like the headshot the hitboxes being the size they are, and be able to slow them down, have all these sound cues as to where they're being slowed exactly. Like it's so easy to get the kills at that point.
It lasts so long too.
For that ability.
And there's no
It's
counter.
$100, and you get 2 of them per round. There's nothing you can do apart from you can bunny hop in it. You can bunny hop like 3 times and not make a sound, I think, to get through it quickly, or you can sit there silent, like just not do anything and wait to die. Because I'm checking them if I put it down. So
I feel like they need more agents with mobility. If you had more agents that had like better utility with more mobility, kind of like a little bit more useful version of Jet in a way, that could, like when Raze has her grenades out, dash and get a kill. Like when the slow is coming down, like catch them off guard and dash through and be able to fight that. I think that's how you would see some of that stuff get countered in her
Omen and
great
Jet
drop
right now.
bit.
The only ones with proper movement mechanics, I suppose.
Raze can use her satchels to get through, I guess, as well.
Yes. Yeah. That's a good shout.
Omen's TP is super slow and it's telegraphed, and like I think Jet could actually solve that problem if after her dash she had like her gun up a bit faster. Like you see, it takes like a few seconds to like get gun ready.
That's so OP.
But that would be insane, right?
I agree.
Yeah.
It would be insane.
She'd be too strong.
Yeah,
she would go 100%
it's a hard
pick
one
rate.
to deal with.
So
you brought she already is, but
and I think what was pretty funny, and I think it just is indicative of a Q&A team and a dev team is only going to catch so many things, and then when they let their animal out into the wild, we the gamers are going to break shit, going to show you shit you had no idea could happen. They had no idea that you could throw a gun into Cypher's camera and then shoot the goddamn gun. Did you guys see that? It's patched out already. Yeah. But that was kind of...
It got us some wins. It got us some wins.
That was a good couple days of like, what the fuck was that? You know?
There's going to be so much of that stuff that every character that comes in, right?
Yeah. Oh, didn't know you could do that. Interesting. So I wonder, just now that so many more people are beating on it and they can watch versus be the participating testers, if they're just going to keep, to your point, Henry, and about movement stuff, and I wonder if they're going to, again, the next step is them to take all this feedback and a big patch, right? They've already talked about patching Raze, but again, I think a lot of this, they need to just keep kind of shifting this stuff, right? Whether it's the economy, but again, like a lot of people are like, how did they not catch that? Because they didn't catch it. Shit happens all the time, right? Funny as hell.
It's over in a beta, right?
Videos,
that's the whole thing.
So yeah, very interesting. Again, it'll be so any again, very early, any agent that you just don't ever like, doesn't even belong, is anyone that is a no pick yet.
The thing is that there's always a use, right? Because they're not going to design a character that doesn't have a use. I think it's just at the more competitive levels, you're going to see it going through, being put through its paces. I honestly think Sova's pretty useless. I think his ult's pretty garbage unless you combine it with someone else's. If you combine it with Sage, for example, it's very strong because you can slow him and ult them in it. Like, you can reveal their position. I get it, but I don't think he does that job better than anyone else can. Would I have him or Cypher? Absolutely. It's Cypher every time. He has more information pieces. He can solo sites. He can reveal more. It's, again, I think that people are actually underestimating, at least in that tournament, what Omen could do, because you've got a free kind of semi-flash, but it also takes sound away and it goes through walls as well. Like, I think there's a lot of picks that could still come out and be adapted further.
I feel like every agent is viable. You have to bear in mind, when you have Overwatch as a prime example, they come with their own default guns, right? Their own default weaponry. Their kit's different than everyone else's. In Valorant, you buy the same guns. If you have an AK-47 or Phantom, whatever it's called, you know what I mean. At that point, you still rely on the same mechanics as everyone else. When you're playing Overwatch, for example, you have a different shooting mechanic. Everything's a bit different. So obviously, every agent's going to be viable to a sense as how well it can be used. I don't think it's going to be like, oh, this agent is not usable because it's not as powerful or whatever. You're still going to have the fallback mechanics. If it fits into your synergy of the team, I think it works out. I don't think it's going to be a strict meta of this is the 5 you must run.
Gotcha,
right, I
which
think
is good, because you don't want that, right? You want the variety.
Yeah, the agents, I think, will actually be more map dependent as time goes on, rather than just like, remind me, we only have 3 maps, like splits, kind of like,
Damn you,
it is what it is. But I think agents become more map dependent as time goes on, where if they add like different type of map elements, different types of choke points, where I think some agents could become like certain maps with tons of verticality where only like Raze and Jet can get to, and Omen, right? Like, they become way more impactful on maps like that.
That was my
I
next
think you
question.
raised a good point. Just on the note of like team composition as well, really quickly, if you look at, let's say, Viper and Omen, and maybe some others, Split is the map that they can play well because Viper's wall is really good. It saves you your smokes. Omen, the rotations are so long on that map because mid is such a contested point. If you win mid and you can teleport behind someone, it's huge. I mean, the thing is, they can be more specific, as you said, and I think you'll see some of the agents that weren't played so much now finding a lot more place on those maps specifically. I mean, Raze is very strong at holding middle right now. Put her with maybe, I don't know, a Sage in middle, and you've got time for days, you've got spam for days, you've got a lot of what you need. It can be map dependent. I think you might be able to find some specialists who can play things out. Again, Viper not being picked, I'm not unhappy to see it. Like, Viper is annoying as hell, but it's her ultimate that's strong and her wall that's strong. The rest are kind of weak compared to the others. But that wall can be great when it comes to something like Split. So again, I think you'll see it a little bit more specific when we come down to it.
Yeah, what I want to next was going to be maps, and if they are related to agent picks or they stand alone. Again, back to a Counter-Strike reference. 2 maps so far. Well, 3 maps total. 2 maps so far. Again, A site, B site. So again, the map structure is very Counter-Strike-like. But then they said, let's do this a little different. Let's have a 3 bomb site map, right? So now we got both playing. Before we get into agents and how you kind of said a little bit, Pansy, how some will lean into certain maps, your guys' just general thought process on, and Matt, easy for you maybe because you come from a world of different game modes at the top level of game, right? Call of Duty plays different game modes to win a match. We're used to, obviously, defusal, 2 bomb sites. That's it. We don't play hostage. We don't do anything else in Counter-Strike. These are all the same type of map, but obviously they're going crazy with this 3rd bomb site. Thoughts on the variety of something like that?
I think it's great. I don't mind it at all. I think it's just the same sort of layout. This just touching on that map that has the 3 bomb sites. It's a very similar layout to Tuscan from Counter-Strike, actually. You can see there's definitely some inspiration there, especially towards the A site. I feel like it just makes middle a bomb site. And it means that C, for what it's worth, it's held down by one player, essentially, with a sniper usually, only one angle, and can be done with good utility usage. And it means there's very strong transitions as well between B and A. It means there's more dynamic. I think the map flows pretty well. I haven't noticed any crazy things like really kind of letting that map down or making feel like it's strange having 3 bomb sites. I think it's cool. I just think middle's got a bomb site, and I think it's an idea that's just been ingrained in Counter-Strike for so long. There can only be 2 bomb sites, so why can't there be 3? If it plays well and it works out, then for sure, like, who cares?
Agree, Matt?
Yeah, I think it keeps it fresh and fun. I like what they did with the teleporters to keep it interesting on Bind. I think the only map that I had like a huge issue with was like Split. But I think the more I play it, because for whatever reason the other day I queued like 4 hours straight of the map, I don't mind it as much. I think it's just way more punishing than the other maps feel. To where like if you lose mid, like you're just dead, and you're just in this constant battle of just mid.
That actually plays more like a classic Counter-Strike map, like CT versus T, in terms of like the choke points are so prevalent on the map. It's all about getting control of middle, for example. If you can get mid control on the attacking side, very important, really helps you out. But you can be locked out by utility at the start. That's why we talk about Raze and his grenades towards middle on Split, especially. Just to tell you on the zipline mechanic as well, I actually think that's awesome. I think that's really fun. I think it's really super slick and satisfying to use. Like, they've done a really good job there. Like those sort of things as well. The fact you can shoot on the zip lines and have full accuracy, I welcome that stuff. It's not the same game as Counter-Strike. You don't have to go those really close parallels. Right. But so for me, it's cool. I think like new ideas that work and they actually make sense. Like, I think that's a really awesome mechanic. I think it's a lot of fun. I've messed some people up on those zip lines, so I'm more than fun.
Yeah. But I think that you've been trained in like the punishing school of Counter-Strike where you don't mind it being CT-sided, right? So you'll sit there on, let's say, Split, hammer out good CT, and then you're excited for a challenging T-side. Whereas I know a lot of people hate Split because they're like, well, what the fuck can we do? We're getting spammed out in mid. It's like, okay, we'll wait out the nades, bait out utility. Like, it's teaching them the lessons that we've already learned through search and destroy games as to how to bait out utility, how to punish rotations. It feels like a teaching map to me. It feels like, here you go. Here's your 3 areas on the map that you want to focus on. Your full site executes on either side, and middle is your big one, right? If you take control of that on attack or defense, you've kind of wrapped up the round pretty heavily, unless you can maybe do a late lurk through there. Maybe throw your Omen into that to try and punish it. I think Split down the line as a caster would be the most fun to cast. I think as a player, you're going to see a lot of the kind of more casual side of things being very frustrated with it because communicating and telegraphing pieces on an attacking side is hard, but the game shouldn't always be easy. I think that's the first time they've thrown a bit of a curveball at the player base, and I think they're going to be resilient for a little while, but they'll learn it. They'll learn like everyone did on Nuke, right? Nuke's a set piece, and it's a welcomed look on Counter-Strike. Love it or hate it, it's there, and it's enjoyable to watch when someone works out that T side. When Astralis went on a run, just hammering people, punishing rotations every time, you sit there and go, fuck, they've done it. That is a sick thing to watch. And you try and do it yourself with your friends. I think, honestly, Split is a more exciting map. The others all play, yes, it's a 3-bomb site, but they've just turned the most contested point into a site. If you win the most contested point on most maps, you're going to win the map anyway, or most times, right? Unless a clutch comes in. So I think they've done something nice on that. They made it a bit more challenging, whereas the others are your traditional search and destroy, defusal sort of map. So I'm excited to see if that pushes the player base a little bit heavier now.
Yeah, because even when I was watching Hiko's team, they talked specifically about that philosophy that, hey, this is like Nuke, so we're fine. We're absolutely fine that we lost all these rounds because now it's our turn. Like they instantly had that mentality. And again, that's always been a debate in Counter-Strike. Should a map be perfectly even or should it be sided? Right? Because you have to play both sides, but then there's momentum. If you start with the easier side, you have more rounds. Does that fuck you mentally if you're down, although you know you shouldn't be carrying because you're supposed to be down? So I like that. Again, that's maybe Sal and the gang going, they don't have to be perfectly balanced, folks. They got to play both sides. You know? I
agree. I think that's the way forward as well. I love the fact you set yourself an objective after having a really solid defense side. You said, right, we've set our bar now. We've said what we've got to do. We know what we have to achieve, and we know it's going to be difficult. We know it's going to be an uphill battle where we're going to have to slow things down. We have to talk, communicate, and replicate what we did in the first half to take them down. So it's like I think it teaches people good lessons, not to rest on their laurels, especially in video games, that any game can crumble right before your eyes, and you should be aware of the map's tendencies and what can and will happen.
And we all know how much better it feels when you thrash them on a side that you're supposed to lose on, right? That's even the better momentum. It's like, wait, this CT-sided map, we just fucking crushed you. All right.
Yeah, but then you come back and you pistol in the second half, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And then, then it goes the other way. Story of my life. So we are going to, I'm getting a little laggy too, so I'm sorry about that, chat. Hopefully you all can hear me. We're going to talk about this ESPN tournament a little bit. Starts today. If you're not familiar with this tournament, ESPN Esports has organized kind of a tournament / show match, but they a little different than like just grabbing a bunch of streamer teams. They've kind of grabbed arguably maybe the top fivesome, if you will, of a bunch of different games, right? So you're seeing the list right now. So Team Mirage is Counter-Strike. Team Battlegrounds is from PUBG. Team Llama is from Fortnite. Team 6 is from Rainbow Six. Team Canyon is from Overwatch. And Team Rift is from League of Legends. And then on top of this, supposedly the dev team for Valorant is also, they are the 8th team. So this starts today. Just initial thoughts. Anyone, I think some of you guys are probably more familiar, like probably the Battlegrounds team jumps right out to you. Pansy is probably the Overwatch crew jumps out to you. What are we thinking? Forget the dev team for Sal and Rivington and those guys that have not only been playing this game for months, but come from FPS backgrounds. Your general thoughts. First off, it's kind of cool to see ESPN grabbing it. You know, as a Counter-Strike guy, they've always been begrudgingly covering Counter-Strike because, again, they are owned by ABC Disney. Very nervous about terrorists, counter-terrorists, words like bomb, you know, all those things.
Yeah,
so,
me having to say split rather than bomb, oof, that's been hard.
That's a tough one, right?
Honestly, dropping some of it is actually tough. It's on the Spike site.
Spike site, It's weird.
Yeah, no doubt. Spike is down. So, and again, they're all over League of Legends as a coverage company too, so it makes sense that they would lean right into Valorant. But thoughts on this roster, and I want maybe your again, not Sal's team. Let's say the devs are going to win. Who are they going to beat? I guess would be the prediction I'm going to ask of you guys.
Could we bring up the teams again? I can't memorize 100 names that quickly.
I can link to it as well.
Yeah.
You'll bring them back up. There you go.
So, I like Team Canyon. So they've got Ace and Dizzy there, a bit of CS pedigree, Mendo as well, kind of leading the way with some of the kind of plays we've been seeing with the innovations and some of the agents. So that's a team that's definitely going to be stepping. I think Matt mentioned as we came in today, this is a good chance for a lot of players that didn't make it in most of these games we're talking about in terms of like didn't make it to Overwatch League or didn't make it to a tier 1 team in CS, for example. There's a lot of these names within that. Like you look at Ace and Dizzy, for example, turn streamers waiting for their chance. I think Ace was trying to go in Apex, like also all of that game didn't work out. And I think this is the logical conclusion from all the Battlegrounds players, especially. It feels like no one really found a proper home in Battlegrounds. It just kept changing games every few months. I think this is where most of them will end up, if you ask me. I might be completely off the mark there. That's an initial feeling.
There's also a team on that site, the one that we're looking at, that's not listed. It's the Overwatch one. They don't have a listed there. Because there's the Team Heroes and then the Dev team. Yeah,
I'm sorry. So Canyon's actually like Apex guys, right? Yeah. My bad. Or current. Yeah. Kind of sort of Apex guys. Sorry about that. I called them. Because I saw Canyon and thought King's Canyon. My bad. What is playing for Overwatch then?
The players for the Overwatch one are Gale Adelaide, Emong, Kefri, Carter, and Boostia. So there are some players who've been playing like a lot of the Pugs 10-mans with Gale and Kefri,
like closed beta, alpha. A couple of those guys were in alpha even. So that'll be interesting. Okay.
The devs are going to crush, though. I mean, the devs, the CS guys, and I think the Apex dudes are going to be. All three of those are going to be really sick teams.
Honestly, I saw basically Team Mirage lose to Dizzy in a mix, and Dizzy absolutely fisted them. So I honestly, like, as much as like every part of me wants to say Team Mirage is just going to win it, I really think Mendo's one of the like savants so far of this game. He has been actually outstanding at it. He's a very solid player. Ace is just great. So is Dizzy. I don't know the other two as much. I got to cast Kefri as well, and he was completely outclassed. I think as much as like the Overwatch guys are good at their game, I don't think they've had as much time to transition. And the Apex guys grind. They are like absolute grinders. I think you're looking at it between Canyon and Mirage 100%. The dev team, I mean, they're great. They're great players. It depends who they have coming out for them, though. I don't think it's like announced yet. If they have like NTT and all those guys, then sure, they probably will spank it. But beyond that, like I don't know. Honestly, I'm actually not sure, because as much as I wholeheartedly think that Brax and the guys are going to be probably at the top, the underrated player on that team that needs to get more of the attention is AZK. He has been the 100%. Like mile ahead of everyone else. AZK is the most solid player on that roster by a country mile. Brax is flashy, Scars flashy, sure, they're all great at that, but I mean, it's AZK. If he has a bad game, I saw nothing having a bad game, and you know, as said, Dizzy's mix managed to best them in a best of 1. If this goes best of 3s, it might be different. I think it's going to be a really fun game though, to see how much time they've had together and if their compositions actually work. That's the thing as well. Like if you have to switch off your main, let's say you're having to play something a bit different, we'll see, because again, Team Mirage are playing as a 5, so they actually have like a set piece in mind. They have, you know, everything they need. They have the ideas there. Everyone else is probably still a bit of a mix. So you've got to look at the team that's probably played together the most, right?
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think, as we mentioned earlier, like every day that this is out, the Counter-Strikers lose a little bit of that advantage they might have started with, right? And especially if they're, you know, playing other games throughout the week and not grinding it like some of these up-and-comers that. Like Hiko probably isn't like losing sleep over being a pro and wanting to chase this career, right? But you definitely have other people in this tournament that probably are, right, from other games. So it'll be very interesting. Yep. I think that's going to do it for us. I'm getting a little robot-y and a little laggy, so I don't want to ruin the show for everyone. And we've gone about an hour and a half, so that's awesome. Thank you guys very much for your time. Going to give you a chance to do some shout-outs. Let us know what you're doing the next couple of weeks so we know how to find you. You know, Twitter, if you're streaming, if you're doing league stuff for any of the companies, you know, broadcast, etc. Let us know. We're going to start with you, Pansy, in the corner.
I'm mostly gonna be watching TikTok in the same pair of jogging bottoms that I've been wearing for like the last week. That's about it, really. I bathe occasionally. I'll update on Twitter if I've done anything exciting, so very few and far between. But no, I'm hoping to cast some more shit online, so hopefully you can catch it on Twitter, which is the name down below, if you give a fuck. So that's about it.
Fair enough.
Is it me next, Scott?
Yep.
Yeah.
First of all, I'd like to say happy holidays to everyone out there. Hope you're having a wonderful day. And if you'd like to catch more of me, I'll be at the Road to Rio study on the 22nd of April, which will be happening in 2 days' time. It'll be 18 days of non-stop Counter-Strike. So make sure you check in and enjoy the ride. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I'll be doing the Overwatch League games. I think we're week like 13 now. This week I do the China games in the middle of the night. So if you're up at 1 a.m., 3 a.m., or 5 a.m. West Coast time, You'll find me
any of those times.
Watching on YouTube. Yeah,
Amazing.
any of those times. I'll be there. Most likely, I'll be streaming at those times up until then because I'm on a quest to just mess my sleep schedule up. So if you're interested in watching me play World of Warcraft at 2 o'clock in the morning, yeah, find me on Twitter, find me on Twitch. That's where I'll be.
What
Beautiful.
Class
Well,
playing, real quick? What are you playing right now?
I'm playing a paladin right now. I'm one of those people who just makes every class in the book, and
you pushing Mythic Pluses. What can we expect content-wise here?
Yeah. You can expect Mythic Pluses, maybe some LFR. Maybe some.
Okay. Yeah, you went LFR, really.
Sweet LFR tanking. Yes, I'm very deep with it.
Oh, jeez.
Nice.
That would do, Scott.
All right then.
Cut it off.
Yeah,
Cut it off.
At this point. Yeah, good luck at those. Good luck on those overnight streams. I'm sure they'll be great. All right, that's going to do it for us, folks. Again, thank you guys very much for joining me. I appreciate your thoughts on the game. We will probably keep trying to get you on the show once in a while around your real life schedules. Please stay safe. Say hello to all your friends that I know in your various places. Good luck on your streams. Good luck on your broadcasts. That's going to do it for us this week. We'll maybe back. Jason and I are in the gang are deciding if this is going to be a weekly show every couple weeks. Going to play it by ear. We're definitely keeping an eye on the game. We'd love to be doing more of this kind of stuff out of our fancy studio, but we have to wait. So we're going to do it remote for a while. But until next time, we'll see you guys on the internet. Take care, and thanks for watching.